All right, Dog fans, here we go. It's time yet again for Talkin Huskies right here on Root Sports Northwest alongside producer Alex Altman, former Husky NFL tight end Cam Cleland. My name is Dave Softy Cam here every week talking Dogs. Big thanks again to our friends at the law offices of Catherine Clark, who I know Catherine is fired up after what the Huskies did Saturday to Michigan State, Cam. Oh, my Lord. This is a football game that Washington dominated from beginning to end. A 41-7 win that could have been a lot worse on the scoreboard. A 41-0 game with 3 minutes left to go in the third quarter before UW and Kalen DeBoer and Mike Penix and Ryan Grubb called off the Dogs, man. How about that performance by the Huskies in East Lansing on Saturday?
Well, I'll just reiterate what our good friend Elise Woodward and you mentioned during the game. It was a whooping, is what it was. That's the most yards since 1995, 666. They gave up to Nebraska, 713 yards, and there was meat on the bone. My man, there was some spots, the penalties, the officiating. I'm going to roll my eyes on that one, but all in all, dude, to go back there and put up 41 points on that team who was supposed to be good. Now, that is a fair comment. Understanding the issues that was happening within the program, but that Husky team was violent. They were fast. Guys looked like they were ready to play. Not just ready to play, they were ready to put on a beat down. And it started with Michael Penix and a lot of those throws, and along with all the defense, everything. You couldn't have asked for a better road trip.
Yeah, you mentioned it. 713 yards of offense is the second most gained in the history of the program. Only number 2 to a game that I believe you played in back in the 90s against San Jose State when Corey Dillon went bananas in the first half against the Spartans that day. But Cam, Michael Penix just continues every single week to light up opposing defenses. You're waiting and waiting and waiting for somebody to figure the Penix puzzle out, and nobody has been able yet to figure it out. Mike Penix on Saturday, 27 of 35, 473, 4 touchdowns. He averages 13.5 yards per throw, and the Huskies average 9.9 yards per play. Cameron, the Huskies were averaging a first down on every single play of this game almost.
Yeah, and you would have thought going into the game, Michigan State learned a little bit of that last year on how they decided to defend him. And they tried a couple blitzes early in the game and got out of that one. So now Michael Penix is number 1 in the country in passing yards. He's number 1 in yards per game. He's number 2 in touchdowns in the nation. This is for real. There's no more talk about, well, there's been this slight offensive change and they're not playing tough teams. The discussion is over. And I said this prior to the game, and I'm going to stay with it. This is the most dangerous offense and the most frightening offense to defend against in the country. It starts with the offensive line, the protection that they have given. Okay, they've been able to shuffle Parker's Brailsford into certain positions, and he's played well. He was freshman Pac-12 Player of the Week with his development. But it starts up front. The running game, 177 yards on the ground, and that was a nice little show. But to put up 713 on the road in East Lansing, and it started with Penix. The way he threw it, he dealt it. Big plays. Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze, my goodness. Across the board, we are the hardest offense to defend in the country.
Yeah, Rome Odunze, 5 catches for $180, does not find the end zone, but for my money, maybe the catch of the game. Michael Penix and the Huskies, Cam, were backed up inside their own 5-yard line, and Michael Penix from 5 yards into the end zone, off his back foot with a Michigan State defender right in his face, finds Rome Odunze, who was basically covered, let's face facts, and grabs that football for a 50-yard gain. I was asking Kalen DeBoer at the press conference on Monday, what is covered? What is covered for Husky wide receivers? And he said, look, when we have a matchup of a 6'2 wide receiver against a 5'9", 5'10 defensive back, I trust Rome Odunze and Mike Penix to win that battle, and that's exactly what happened on that play. I thought it was the throw of the game in some ways for Michael Penix, man.
Yeah, absolutely, and to go up and get that football, and Coach DeBoer said he's gotten stronger, and all those guys have gotten stronger. The thing is I was listening to the opposing radio as we were coming out of the game and finishing, and a lot of those guys were saying, well, we knew they were going to be open, but then they were really open, but then they were really, really open. Like they couldn't figure out a way to stop it in space. But it's the terrifying fact that these wide receivers have become monster takers when that ball is in the air. And talk about a reboot from last week versus Tulsa with a couple mental errors. There were no mental errors in this game. These guys went up and took the football.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is a situation on Saturday where you had basically I'm just going to say it, 3 guys went over 100 yards receiving because McMillan has 96 yards in the first half, Cam, and then misses the second half with the knee injury, which, thank God, it looks like he's going to be fine for the Cal game on Saturday. That was scary, man, watching number 11 go down. I'm on the sideline, as you know, for the game on Saturday, and I see McMillan come back with no ice, no wrap, no brace, no nothing on that knee. Exhaled big time when number 11 came back, but he had 96 yards in the first half and then sat out the entire second half. And then how about Jack Westover, man? This is a guy who played 2 games of football in high school, 2 of them. And now he's on the road with a hat trick against Michigan State on Saturday. The first one taking Rome Odunze into the end zone with him as a lead blocker. How about the game that number 37 had Saturday, Ken?
Jack, and Westy's a big stud, man, because this is what tight ends do. And I'm going to be hyper-biased in my reality of tight ends make all their money in the red zone. That's what you have to do, especially when you're down there and it's tight and it's condensed. And Jack is an embarrassment of riches because there's so much talent. Now that Jeremy Bernard is in there, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, and Rome Odunze, who's covering Jack? They're like, who's this 37 kid? Why is he so open? He did it versus Tulsa last week, too, or the previous week, and he does it this week because in that red zone, he is a target that's going to get one-on-ones. He's also going to get forgot about because defenses are trying to double-team Rome Odunze with your shift in motion. Thing is you still have to make the play. You can get the ball there, but Jack made those plays, catching the football, finishing yards after catch. I'm so excited for that kid. Mount Si, everybody was smiling up there in the plateau.
Yeah, quick bit of trivia for Husky fans out there. Who leads the Huskies right now in receiving touchdowns after 3 games? It's Jack Westover. Not Rome, not Jalen, not Polk. It's number 37, not Jeremy Bernard. Jack Westover is your leading touchdown receiver after 3 games for UW. Well, look, Cam, you mentioned it at the start. The offensive line, Mateo Mele out for the year now with the injury. Parker Brailsford, the freshman, steps in and starts at center. Caleppo at right guard. Julius Bilo at left guard. Bilo was banged up a little bit too when he came back, will be available for the game against Cal. On Saturday, we saw a bunch of guys. They're creating a bunch of depth on the offensive line. We saw the Hatchet brothers both get to play at the same time. I know Mama Hatchet was fired up for that on Twitter, by the way, but how about the offensive line dinged up and, hey, no problems whatsoever versus that Michigan State front 7 that had 10 sacks in the first 2 games of the year?
Yeah, it was impressive. The guys played with a lot of continuity and tons of confidence, man. The depth is there. Yeah, there's going to be some bang-ups. It's awful with some of the injuries. It's a violent sport, but we'll get into this more because these guys deserve a ton of credit how well they're protecting Michael Penix.
Yeah, we'll come back and dive into the injuries and the offensive line. A couple players, Kalen DeBoer announcing yesterday, are out for the year, and more guys dinged up for the Cal game. When we come back, we'll recap again what we saw from the offensive line, the defense on Saturday at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing, check the injury situation, and look ahead to California. Talkin Huskies continues next right here on Root Sports Northwest. All right, Dog fans, welcome back to Talkin Huskies right here on Root Sports Northwest. Dave Softy Mahler, joined by former Husky NFL tight end extraordinaire Cameron Cleland. By the way, big thanks to our friends at Nordstrom Heating and Air. Find them on the web at nordstromheating.com. Big Dog fans who I know were fired up for the way the season has begun. The Huskies staying at number 8 in both polls after the win over Michigan State on Saturday. California in town, 7:30 this weekend at Husky Stadium. Cam will chat about the Bears and Justin Wilcox in a few minutes, but let's first of all go back to Kalen DeBoer on Monday's press conference talking about the injury situation right now facing the Huskies.
Mateo and Devon will be out for the season. So, and then Asa will be, kind of week to week. So we'll see. Probably doubtful for this week, but we'll see as we go along. He's working very hard to get back soon, and you never know.
All right, so Mateo Mele, center, out for the year. Devon Banks, cornerback, out for the year. We'll see about Asa Turner in the game on Saturday versus Cal. Jalen McMillan, Julius Belo were dinged up in the game versus Michigan State, but should be good to go for this game Saturday versus Cal. The big one, obviously, is Mateo Mele. Parker Brailsford, the freshman, who started at right guard the first couple games of the year. He is now your anchor in the middle for the rest of the season. How about that?
Well, that kid's a gem. He has done something unique because he's went from starting as a freshman at right guard, and now he moves into the center position. And I feel for Mateo Mele. Man, I know what that it's just right to the heart, man. When you see a kid that's waited 6 years and these injuries and with that, and he's going to have season-ending injuries with that surgery. But now we look at the depth, and that's why you have to develop. And that's why Scott Huff, the offensive coordinator, does such an amazing job on getting these guys ready. Next man up, Julius Belo goes out with an ankle. You step in both freshmen. You see a Garion Hatchett, the older brother, and you bring in Landon Hatchett, the true freshman, to come in. And there's the depth and how you rotate it. And you're just going to get thrown to the wolves with these guys. There's no time to wait. And injuries are a part of it. And Devon Banks and now we can see Asa Turner. This game, man, it doesn't do any favors for guys. And so how can you manage the depth? That's why you build it up. That's why you did a good job with cornerback and bringing in a lot of guys. Jabbar Muhammad's been fantastic. Elijah plays better on the outside. So across the board, this team has the depth to manage it. You just have to make sure that injuries are always going to happen, Dave. In college, it feels like in that first month. Same with the NFL. And then how do you get through it?
Yeah, I think that needs to be kind of reiterated for the game on Saturday. This was a Michigan State team that had the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week in Noah Kim the week before against Richmond. Number one, he's benched in the second half. Number two, with 3:45 to go in the third quarter, that offense had 0 points. And oh, by the way, the Husky defense was missing Devon Banks, Cameron Fabiculanan, and Asa Turner. So we saw a lot of Vincent Nunley at safety in the game on Saturday. We saw a lot of Elijah Jackson in the game at corner on Saturday. Tell me about Devon Banks being out and what that means for 25 Elijah Jackson, because there was a little bit of a competition, right, between those guys, and that competition, because of injury, is now over.
That's 2 season-ending injuries for Devon Banks. And again, he could just somber because a kid that was playing so well and now his shoulder's hurt again. He was playing really, really good. He was going to battle Elijah Jackson for that spot. So that means Thaddeus Dixon, Javion Green, Darren Brooks, Barkins, who comes in as a transfer. All these guys are now going to have to elevate at that corner position. Again, I'll say it again. Jabbar Muhammad is the real deal. I mean, he's an island. That number one is an island on that side. He is at 5'10", playing 6'10". I don't care. He's all over the place. But the depth in the secondary needs to be really noted, that the upgrade and the athletes that they have done and how well the defense played. Dave, we talked about the offense, how in the first segment. This defense from ZTF coming off the edge and being Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week, getting that should have been a sack, officials. All across. This defense played sensational with an intensity.
Yeah, ridiculous on the no strip sack fumble for Zion, man. That was right there. You're watching from the press box, and that ball was coming out the entire way. I almost felt like the Huskies got homered by their own conference refs, by the way, in the game on Saturday. That was a Pac-12 officiating crew, and it's almost as if they were trying to go overboard to not favor Washington. The Huskies had 10 penalties in the first half of the game on Saturday. Did not get that fumble call, as you said right there, which was an obvious play that should have gone the Huskies' way. But hey, no matter. They win the game 41-7. Dogs are 3-0, top 8 in the country in both polls. When we come back, let's focus more on that defensive side of the football and look ahead to California. This is Talkin Huskies right here on Root Sports Northwest. All right, Dog fans, welcome back to Talkin Huskies right here on Root Sports Northwest. Dave Softy Cam, Cam Cleland, producer Alex Altman. UW 3-0 after thumping Michigan State on Saturday in East Lansing at Spartan Stadium. 41-7. Next up, the Cal Bears this weekend. 7:30 kickoff from UW. Arizona, by the way, the following week. Also a night game at 7 o'clock from Husky Stadium. So back-to-back night games for Husky fans. I know we all love those night games, obviously. But Cam, before we get ahead to California, let's go back to Michigan State. Talk more about that defense. William Inge, co-defensive coordinator in charge of linebackers, talking after the game at the Monday press conference about the physicality of the defense against that Spartan offense.
Our players are really keyed into being on point when it comes to their preparation, and we really had them ready for the physicality that they had to be able to bring, because when you hear about the aura of your Big Ten play, it's going to be a physical game. And we said we really commanded our guys to where we wanted to be the more physical team in the trenches.
So we've been waiting for a couple games now for Braylon Trice and ZTF to step up, and oh boy, did they on Saturday. Any concerns about the lack of a pass rush, at least for Saturday's game, were flushed down the toilet pretty quickly, man.
Think about this, what this defense has done so far: 10, 19, and 7. Those are numbers that this defense has not allowed the opposing offense to score, to shut down a Michigan State and embarrass them on their own home grass field. By the way, you get that grass monkey, we just throw that sucker out there because that grass thing's not real. But this front, that mindset and that attitude, you could see it from the clips a little bit and how Coach DeBoer talked about it in the locker room. The guys were not only ready, that Thursday practice, that road trip, it was business. And it meant something. There was an attitude of, we have something to prove to the country. Yeah, it was on a streaming service of Peacock, but it didn't matter. Everybody took notice on how well the defensive line, they came out in a 50 front with 5 men up front and said, we're stopping the run, we're selling out. And in that first series, I thought, Dave, they took their heart, just ripped it right out in front of them and said, we're here to answer any questions of how good this defense is.
Yeah, let's talk about the interior as well of that defensive line. I thought there were plays made by players like Thule, players like Carson Bruner that allowed other players to get in the box score, right, Cam? They're plays that necessarily don't show up on the stat sheet and players don't get credit for them, but we saw throughout the entire game defensive linemen, linebackers redirecting runners, redirecting the quarterback into the hands of a player to make a sack or make a TFL. It looked to me like a total team effort out there on Saturday.
Oh, shout out to the interior guys. That means MJLA, dude, you played so much better. You were physical. Tui, dude, you got after it. No, I'm sorry, if I didn't play, it was Thule. The Thule Nasinoa got after it. He was there. Jacob Bandes, I saw, the double nickel, 55, getting after it. And they had so much depth, and they wanted to play Fatu, but they didn't have to. They kept him out because of injury. But that was the depth that they had on the inside. And then Zion, they're going to leave him unblocked on the edge. And then they tried, and Braylon Trice, they were running at Braylon again. And then you got to have to slide to an All-American candidate. But you can't forget about ZTF, who gets two sacks. The linebackers, Eddie was active. All those guys, Zoe, the interior group, that box count of guys, the 7 and the 8, that the way they played, the intensity, stopping the run and shutting down the Michigan State run and how they wanted to be physical. How many times have you heard how tough and physical the Big Ten is? Well, we're going into the Big Ten, and we were physical, more physical than them by far.
Yeah, Michael Penix now has 3 career wins, by the way, versus Michigan State. 2 of them in that stadium. So it's kind of odd to think of a Washington Husky quarterback who's played Michigan State 4 times with a 3-1 record. But his numbers against the Spartans, man, overall, unbelievable. This guy completely dominated Michigan State in the 4 games he played against the Spartans in the box score. I saw one of the students on the sidelines had a McDonald's job application for Michael Penix, kind of obviously trying to get under his skin a little bit. And I saw Michael notice that late in the game when he was laughing, and Roma Dunze after the game saying, yeah, I think number 9 is going to be having a different job next year. He'll be working somewhere else besides McDonald's, man. So it really is incredible how Michael Penix has taken the nation by storm. I'm seeing 2 different college writers this week, Cam, that have top 25s, that have UW at number 1. A lot of people have Michael Penix number 1 in their Heisman tracker. How do they handle the hype? How do they handle the spotlight now moving forward, starting with California on Saturday?
Well, I think there is, like you said, a small amount of under the radar. You look at the AP, keeps him at 8. Some of these other writers are seeing it. Joel Klatt picked him as the scariest team in the country. Big fan of Joel Klatt on Fox. They are a little under the radar. Just keep going 1-0, one at a time. Don't read the paper clippings. 1 win at a time, and it starts this week in Pac-12 play. Cal.
That's right, 7:30 on Saturday. We'll come back and talk about California. The Golden Bears in town. Every time the Huskies and Cal get together, It's a barn burner. These games are never easy for whatever. It's like the Hawks and the Rams, man. Every time the Bears and Huskies play, it's always a fourth quarter game. We'll come back and chat about that next right here on Talkin Huskies. All right, Dog fans, final segment for us right here on Talkin Huskies. If you'd like to be a part of the show and help out as a sponsor, we'd love to have you on board in the Talkin Huskies family. You see the email right there on your screen, talkinhuskiesw@gmail.com. Don't be afraid to email us and say hello and be a part of the show at talkinhuskiesw@gmail.com. Cam, before we talk about California on Saturday, offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb talking about what the California defense did to the Husky offense last year in a close 28-21 win for UW.
They had a good plan, tried to keep a lid on it and keep us from being explosive down the field, so they really did a good job with that. And one of the things our guys have to know going into the football game is this isn't a team that's in the first year of their system. It's an experienced group. It's a group that can adjust, and so we'll have to dig deep and find a lot of different looks for them to look at and try to confuse them a little bit and see if we can execute at a higher level than we did last year.
All right, so I'm looking at all the history and the scores, Cam, between these two teams. 28-21 Husky win a year ago. 31-24 Husky win in overtime 2 years ago. A 20-19 loss, a 12-10 loss. The last four games that UW and Cal have played have all been classics. What is it about this Cal team that gives the Huskies fits?
Well, they love defense, and it starts with their head coach. He's a defensive, brilliant young man when it's Justin Wilcox, and the way he coaches defense, he understands, and the way they game plan it. But you heard Coach Grubb said, we're not going to deviate and change who we are. We're going to do what we need to do to create the pressure and the excitement. And the pressure is going to be on Cal, because to stop that defense and handle it, that's what the Huskies want to do. Big plays over the top. If they shorten it down and skinny it down, no big deal. We'll get in a dirty mess with them. And if it comes down to the fourth quarter, which it probably will, I feel good about having Michael Penix as our signal caller.
Yeah, California 2-1 with a win over Idaho and a close loss to Auburn. The Huskies are 3-0. 7:30 kickoff from Husky Stadium. Go Dogs, and we'll see you next week right here on Talkin Huskies on Root Sports Northwest.